Breath of Fire on the Super Nintendo. It's being played on original hardware. This is a game that I've been playing for 3 hours before starting this video, and I haven't even made it past the first dungeon. I'll explain why in a second. This game has a unskippable 15 to 20 minute cutscene. Fair point. In fact, I'll just start it there, then I'll restart the game. So we're gonna end this. We're gonna stop this video. Yeah, TCB. So we got who else we got? He's a dragon. So what should he be called? Yeah, what do you call a dragon? Yeah, what's her name from the Dragon Maid anime? I don't even remember anymore. Ryo of Wildfire. I don't remember what this name. This is. We're not gonna save this. So when you start the game, you get this unskippable cutscene. I'm gonna try and speed things up. I'll show you how the key configuration works later. So after this, so this 20-minute prologue takes place where you just kind of, actually, you have to hold the button down. Well, let's get the turbo button on. Okay, the slow motion won't work. So can we hold the button down? Nope, that won't work. So we need the turbo function, so we can hold the button down. So I can like let me get a heavy book and put it on top of this button so we can advance through the story and I don't have to pay attention to it. So this game apparently launched in 1993 on the Super Famicom. It is a Capcom turn-based RPG. Was I losing sync during that video? I'd be losing sync during the video. We'll see what happens. I'll keep my eye on the recording, make sure it doesn't go out completely. So this is a game that was made by Capcom apparently in 1993, 2 years after the Super Famicom launched. Final Fantasy IV sold extremely well. And of course, that was a 16. Of course, the Dragon Quest game sold extremely well over on the Famicom. We didn't get that many although we did get most of the Dragon Quest games over from the Famicom. They were eventually ported over to the United States and translated. I haven't played any of them except for the first one. But Capcom apparently decided to try a hand at making an actual factual turn-based RPG that was incredibly popular at the time in Japan for the Super Famicom, so it made its bones trying to make this game. According to the title screen, this game was released in 1994 by Squaresoft as a derivative work. So if you go to the title screen, which we'll see a bit later, the title screen explains this was a Capcom game in 93 that was translated by Squaresoft USA in 1994. I want to say Capcom uh, localized Breath of Fire 2 in the United States. And I want to say that game was released on a 2 megabyte cartridge after the success of Street Fighter 2, which was, of course, the first 16-bit cartridge we got on the Super Nintendo. We don't know what caused the fire, so everyone's safe. So apparently we're supposed to talk to these ladies to advance the story. But I can't just let the cutscene play out. I need to actually control this. I need to actually control the avatar here. Our blue-haired anime hero. Our blue-haired shonen. So eventually this will play out as this woman's going to turn everyone to stone to protect everyone from the fire, and then eventually she's going to try and defend everyone else from whoever's outside. I'm not really paying attention to the story. I'm curious how competent the localization is, because remember, this came out in the mid 1990s. Localizations were really flaky back then. Lots of compromises were made, not just to fit all the Japanese text onto. Well, it's not small. It's not a smaller cartridge. Basically, without getting too complicated with this, Japanese text can convey multiple. A single character in Japanese could be potentially 4 to 5 letters long, sometimes 6. So basically, a word that only requires 1 or 2 Japanese characters might require a dozen or more than a dozen English language letters. So you're taking a word like you're basically taking a sentence that only takes up 2 or 3 characters of space, but you have to convert that entire sentence into something that an English language reader could understand. So anyone who knows the horror stories about localizing video games back then on cartridges knows that you didn't have a lot of space. So you had to not only be efficient with the language you were using, you basically had to take the original Japanese script, convert it to an English script, while also making sure the sentences you wrote weren't too long and that all the text in the game, all of it fit into a space, the same amount of space on the cartridge. I guess the easiest way to describe it is try to take a Japanese, not even a Japanese dictionary. Like, I guess the best way to describe it is take a book, like a Japanese novella, or maybe an actual Japanese novel. It's like maybe 200 pages long. Now condense that novel to like maybe 60 or 70 pages. But you can't change the size of the letters. So, how do you use fewer letters and fewer words to tell the same story in another language? You can do that these days, because data is cheap. This game came out, I think it was a 12 megabit cartridge. This might have been a 12 megabit cartridge, I forget. It might have been only 8 megabits. But the idea was you gotta basically compress your story and then translate it to another language. Always fraught, as I'm sure you could expect. So this game has, again, this entire cutscene is completely unskippable. I have the text on its fastest speed, and it's not going to make a difference. So eventually we'll be able to advance, but I want to at least show you what happens as soon as we wake up, because you can save your game once you wake up, but there's no way for you to skip the grind that you will inevitably have to do for the next 2 hours. I've been doing 3 hours of grinding to prepare myself for what I hope will be a somewhat smooth run through this part of the game. Okay, I'm not losing. Yeah, I want to make sure I don't lose my video feed here. Yeah, I was worried the bright white light might have broken my sync. I don't know what happened earlier. Might just been a flaky connection to my HDMI port. This is being recorded. Again, I'm using a DVD recorder. I might mention this before. I'm playing this on original hardware with a composite video cable, the yellow video cable plugged into my Magnavox VHS DVD combo unit. It's outputting a composite yellow video cable into my CRT. Unfortunately, it's a very noisy signal. I've mentioned this in previous videos. My Super NES plugged into the CRT, sharp. Yellow video cable, composite video cable, very sharp on this JVC DVD combo television that I'm playing it on. It's probably the best CRT, a traditional CRT that I've ever seen. It's not a Trinitron, it's not a Vega, but it's very sharp. So it's a very good way to play a game like this. But I've said this before. I didn't play games on televisions that were this high quality. Almost every Super NES game I played was played while connected to a hi-fi stereo VCR via either a RF coaxial cable connection to a TV, or if I was lucky, I was able to hook it up to a through a through a line input. So this is the first batch of money you get, and you're going to need it because there's no way for you to heal. There's no inn where you can save your game because, as you can see, ain't no inn in this town. It's been burnt to the ground. So if you want to save your game, you go here and talk to what's his name. And you probably won't be able to see this at 30 frames a second. So if you're playing this video at 30 frames a second, this image probably won't appear. If you're playing this video on YouTube at 60 frames a second, this flickering image is apparently an interlacing trick. It's the Dragon Lord. He's going to record my journey. I didn't mean to record that, but whatever. We're going to erase it. So I'll show you the basics about how you have to start. Because like I said, you can't go to an inn and heal yourself. But you have enough money so you can buy potions. Specifically cure potions. Press the $ to trade in to sell stuff you don't want. You can use the question mark to get information about each of these items. You can travel while avoiding enemies. Very nice. You're probably going to need that because the next town does not have a place to save the game. So we're probably gonna have to buy one of these. It's not that expensive. These herbs are worth $9. You can buy 9 herbs right off the bat if you know you're gonna use them all. You're not gonna need an antidote here. You'll need an antidote when we get to the next town. So none of the enemies in this area poison you. I haven't had to deal with any zombies yet. I don't know what the purpose of this is. It's 10 times more expensive than an herb. So maybe it heals you 10 times as much. I don't know. This will put you back in the fighting shape. I think this recovers allies who are dead. Our party is a party of 1 right now. I don't know what this does. I don't know why it's so expensive either. This game did not come with a manual. At least this cartridge that I'm playing on did not come with a manual. So you would definitely buy an herb. Again, we're not going to save this game. I'm just going to show you the basics. I like the little bow she does at the end of the visit. You can buy these. You can also trade in one of your weapons to buy this item. So you can see how strong each weapon is. Like the saber right here. I could trade in my dirk for the saber, and it's barely any stronger. I should mention this, and I guess I'll make this clear when I restart the game. None of these upgrades are meaningful in any way at this point. You don't do that much more damage than you do normally. I can try to trade in my robe for the suede CP. It doesn't protect me anymore. If an enemy does two pits of damage to me when I'm wearing the robe, it's still going to do 2 pits of damage to me while I'm wearing this. So there's no reason for me to waste money on these upgrades. The buff you get to your defense is basically trivial. So I would argue that if you're playing this game when you're from the start, what you should be doing is just grinding. Unless you're speed running, I guess. But the enemies aren't hard. Because as you're going to see, the combat here is extremely simplistic. So let's get to the, again, blind random encounters, just like you would expect. These enemies are too tough to fight right away. Whoops! Yeah, these guys will do a lot of damage to you, so you're going to want to run away from these guys really quick. Yeah, these guys will take it out of you. So you're going to want to avoid the bullies that we just had to deal with. You should be able to deal with the slimes. There's an auto battle function here with the AB button. You can try to run. It's not guaranteed. You can check out your status by going here. You have to press this button to go to the options where you can choose to use your item. This is your item right here. You can press the triangle. You can press the circle. The question mark to see what this item does, which is helpful. This is how you actually take the item. We're not going to do that. You can defend yourself. Why would you do that? And you attack like this. Select the enemy that's flashing. And it'll go down. You can take down slimes in 1 hit. It takes 2 hits to take down the other batch of enemies we'll fight. But you see how much experience we gained. Here's one of the problems. We gained 1 experience and 4 gold. I'll show you the shortcut keys I developed. Because there are some shortcut keys here. Like, for instance, you can go here to the option menu. And you can change what each key is mapped to. You can check out your status. You can go to the item menu. You can, we don't have any magic. I say you can go to the option menu here for some reason. Item on the X key. L key could be for equipping. R key could be for the menu. I don't know. It's up to you. So I like the fact that they give you that option. That's actually a very good option for a game of this vintage. You do not see that very often. You can't switch characters. You can't take. You can move them to the front or back row, I guess. If that what that means. I don't know. That was never explained. Again, that's the option menu. Magic, we don't have any. We can change our equipment. Nothing here. You can't equip an herb, which makes sense. And there's your items. So those are the basics. Let's hope there's another easy enemy here. But again, we'll restart the game so you can see how I normally play the game. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you the status bar. Let me show you the status menu. Here's one of the problems. Okay, I have 1 experience point. Quick question. When do I go up an experience level? Not explained. That value is not made available here. Do you go up when you reach level 100? Don't know. Do you go up when you get 100 experience points? I don't know. I just got 1. These guys will take it out of you, so be careful. You might have to use your healing item here. I don't really trust the auto battle in a situation like this because I believe the AI will sometimes target the wrong enemy. So what I'll do is I'll target one enemy to whittle them down, and then once I whittle them down to like 2 mobs, once I whittle them down to 2 individuals, then we can turn on the auto battle. And you sometimes counter, which is good, because you're going to need to counter. Good. So one of them's down, so I get to use my healing item here. Again, these battles aren't hard. It's just this is all you're doing for the first hour of the game, and then you spend another hour just kind of getting leveled up enough so that you're trying to one-shot every enemy like this, and that's the problem. It takes a while to grind up to that level. So go here, go to the item where you can use your herb. And again, these herbs cost $9. So we're going to earn $9 after both of these fights. We got $4 from the first fight. Of course, we got to eat a turn so that we don't die. So let's try the auto battle here from here on out. And I think the auto battle feature in Final Fantasy IV? I don't remember. But the idea is that you can kind of skip some of the grinding by just doing auto battling. And I want to say Nintendo Power, they had an article a while ago about like accessories that you can only really find in Japan. And make all the jokes you want. There was a one-handed controller on the Super Nintendo or the Super Famicom. And apparently it was like a stopwatch where you could like move your character. There, like the face of the button had like a D-pad in the center, but you can press all the buttons using your 4 fingers. The idea being that if you're playing an RPG, you don't need 2 hands to play an RPG where all you're doing is selecting options from a menu. Fascinating controller. Make all the jokes you want about the Japanese making a one-handed controller for RPGs. But the point is that they were thinking, and I think I appreciate that thought. People who have been playing Japanese RPGs since Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy 1 came out probably recognized a long time ago in the late 80s, early 90s, that it would be great if I could just read a book, read a manga, watch, read the newspaper, write some stuff, draw a map, I don't know, do whatever you need to do while you play the game on the left hand. Just use the D-pad to choose menu options. You can then, excuse me. So we'll erase that. So what we'll do is we'll start the second game, where I'm currently level 2, so you get a better idea about how the pacing of the game goes for the first hour or so. Again, I'm not gonna make you sit through all this because I already have a level 6 game save, and I'll show you why I made that one. Because the pacing of this game is really bad. I would never make you guys sit through 2.5 hours of grinding to get to the point where I'm at level 6. Okay, so this is the castle. But here's the problem. I'm in a castle, but there's no way for me to heal myself. Status change. We don't need the change option. So this should be item. Status can be Y, L can be option. That's fine. We'll change those buttons if we need to. So press the X button and go to the item menu, and I don't have my herb. Now, why did I save my game here? I guess I'm going to have to run away. Because there's no item shop here. So I got all the way here, and I ran out of herbs, so I'm probably out of luck. There's no way for me to buy anything here. Oh, that's right. There's a potion in here. Yeah, okay. I'll show you this. That's probably why you can't. Probably why there's no. It's probably why there's no inn. There is a healing fountain here. We got to bounce. Missed. Okay, we got poisoned, so we're gonna die. This is not gonna work. You get poisoned in here, which means like we made it out. We're gonna lose. We're gonna lose health every step. Yeah, we're gonna lose health every step. Okay, we're not dead. We're gonna have one. Yeah, so it whittles us down to 1 health point until we get to the fountain over here. There's a well over here. Missed. And I'm dead. The party's fallen. Party's over. So how am I now? So I got my health back. That's good. Okay. Okay, so I'm at. This is the second town. In case you're wondering how I get here, it's north of the town where we started. So you have to go through a few fights to get here. But I do want to show you this part. So that was actually a generous save point. So I go in here and I can go to the pool of the pool of radiance, I guess you could call it, for all you all you AD&D fans. And it heals you, and it heals you from any poison you have to deal with. So that's fine. I'm not sure I can fight these guys at level 2, if I'm being honest. But having that pool here will help. So I'll show you the enemies that I usually have to fight when they're south of town. HP is completely recovered. So this is where you would grind. But again, I'm not going to stay there for 4 hours trying to grind. Okay, here's the other question. As I just said, when do I level up? I mean, is it like level 1? Do I have to get 100 experience points before I level up? Don't know. Should be able to one-shot this guy. Actually, I can't one-shot him yet. Yeah, I'm not strong enough. Ow! That hurt. And remember, there's no way for me to heal, so I'm level 3, and I don't get my health. I don't get my health back when I level up. I want to say. Wrong button. Nope, didn't heal. Yeah, one shot could take you out. That's not great. Actually, I'm already level 27 experience points. So when did I level up exactly? I would love to know how I actually I would love to know how many experience points I need to level up. That's very confusing. It's extremely confusing. I kind of feel like an idiot for not recognizing the values involved. Ow. Jeez. Yeah, I shouldn't be here. First of all, I'm woefully underprepared, among other things. So I get healed, but yeah, this might be. It sounds like an easy way to level up, but there aren't a lot of. There's not a lot of room to. There's not a lot of wiggle room here. Again, see, this isn't hard in the sense that my strategy is bad. It's hard because you just have to tank damage and just kind of grind, auto battle your way through these enemies. Wrong button again. Y status. So I am very curious. So that probably means I won't have to do this for an hour to level up. But I don't need to buy potions doing this either, so I'm saving money in that sense. I want to say you get a decent amount of experience outside of town. It just takes a while is the problem. I probably could have come, if I had bought some potions, I probably could have come here way sooner. But you're going to need to buy potions, but you can't buy potions here. You can't buy anything here. You have to go all the way back to town to buy this crap. So I guess you can grind here. But you have to go all the way back to town. Which means you have to be strong enough to survive every encounter you face on the way back to town. So boy, this was a very bad game save, so I'm glad I didn't keep it here. So yeah, this is a really bad run. See, this is a terrible way to do this. So I'm level 4 now. Okay. So I leveled up pretty quickly if I come here. But like I said, I should have brought some potions with me. So that's the problem. Okay. So that's a faster way to level up. I feel better about that. Again, game doesn't tell you what you need to do to level up. Is like every 20 experience points? I don't know. So I'll start from the beginning. I'll show you the first town. So the good news is that the enemies around here in that area will help you grind up pretty quickly. But I'll show you the regular enemies that we're gonna face right away. Because I needed to grind for a while because the enemies that you need to be able to heal yourself on the way to the first town. But you can't you can save there, but you need enough potions to survive the trip going there and the trip back, which is the problem. Now, as you saw earlier, there were a couple of nice features. You could buy a stack of 9 potions, which is good to have for a long excursion. We'll probably wind up doing that. Yeah, we have 8 potions here. How much gold do I have? It doesn't say how much gold I have. I have to go to the first menu screen. Okay, so again, I don't know what I'm doing to level up exactly. 888 gold, so that's enough. Again, we're not going to buy any upgrades. We're just going to buy potions. This is enough potions for us to get where we're going. I have 3 antidotes, right? Yeah, 3 antidotes. That might be enough because we might buy 1 more. Well, thankfully we have a unlimited supply of these. Oh yeah, we can buy a marble. The marble 3. And I guess we can buy 9 of these. Because we're going to need them eventually. Because we need them to get back home, basically. What was this? I don't remember what the T drop was. That was for zombies, right? Yeah. What zombies? We can buy 1, I guess. Better to have and not need, I guess. Alright. So that might be handy. And again, the enemies here drop enough money so that it's not a waste. I started with 300 and I eventually earned enough to do this. But again, because the potions are cheap, you can afford to grind because you have more than enough money to buy potions to heal yourself to survive the grinding you got to do. Which brings up a whole bunch of other issues I don't want to get into. Yeah, so you can't have more than 9 herbs in your stack, which is what I was afraid of. All right, so let's get to work. So we will make a decent amount of cash inside those dungeons. That's okay. So let me show you some of the enemies we're going to fight here. I have enough potions that I don't need to wander around town. What do you know? Not a single encounter. Okay, here's your encounter. So let's see how much damage I do to this guy. Again, I didn't buy any weapon upgrades. So I'm strong enough. I can't one-shot these guys, but I can tank 6 bits of damage. Auto battle. So he's down. So I can one-shot these guys if I get a good swing. Slam! Da, da, da. 7 experience points. Again, those might be the toughest enemies you face outside. Now these guys are pretty tough because they're fast. They can attack you. They can usually attack you before you get a chance to strike them. So you have to keep that in mind. So that you will fight. Yeah, there are deer and boar running around the overworld. You can't really interact with them yet. I think you can hunt them. I recall a Breath of Fire 2 having a system where you could hunt enemies, and I want to see you could also fish in that game. I'll talk more about Breath of Fire 2 later because I remember really liking that game when it came out. Pretty sure it doesn't hold up. I remember really liking it, and it was somewhat the contemporaneous reviews in American magazines. The game was pretty highly regarded when it came out, actually. Now, where's my experience? Again, I don't know how much. I don't know how much I need to level up. Kind of an odd omission for a game like this, unless it's something obvious, like every time you reach 100, but it's clearly not doing that. So I don't know what's going on. One shot him. So you can argue it's worth arguing you should probably just grind here, which I already did earlier. But again, I had to do this for 3 hours, well, 2.5 at least, because I was listening to a bunch of those Sunday morning programs, and it's like, yeah, it's like 2.5 hours, dog. That's wild. And of course, you can always save here. Actually, where are my items? Yeah, the marble. I have the marble 3. I don't know what the marble 3 means. It just means that the enemies don't attack me. But again, remember, space limitations being what they are, you have to you can't the names that you give these items can't be long. It has to be like fire, FIR2, FIR3, like fire 2, fire 3, like that kind of thing. Or worse, remember playing we played Phantasy Star 2 on this channel. And Phantasy Star 2 had a bunch of stupid spell names. It's like they weren't like descriptive at all. They were like spells like what? Asta and Rion. I don't even know what the spell names were. Like they weren't spells that described what they did. Like in Final Fantasy, the spell names were fire, ice, lightning, and it made sense. In Phantasy Star 2, they were given these, these crappy anime names, where it's like, I'm not gonna cast a fire spell. I'm gonna cast a Duon spell. I don't remember what the name of the spells were, but they weren't descriptive in any way. So you had to like write down what those commands were because they weren't English. They weren't. I think they were a fictional language. But it's like I'm trying to cast a spell that does a thing. I'm not trying to wasn't that magician game on the NES kind of like that, where it's like you were learning spells, but the names of the spells were like abracadabra. What does that do? Oh, I guess it heals you, or I guess it makes you run, or it makes you run faster, or like I don't know. The names of the spells did not match the words that were used to describe them. So it's like you're doing this Harry Potter crap where it's like Leviosa or something to describe a levitation spell. But you'd have to make that transit. You'd have to make that you have to do that explanation in your head, which is the problem. Missed. So yeah, these guys aren't too bad. So out in the overworld, the enemies aren't too bad. We'll run into some fleas that will start attacking us before we can. They'll do like a group of 3 fleas, a mob of 3 fleas, will take out 6 pips of life before you even get a chance to strike. So they're more dangerous than most of the enemies, and you can't really run away from them. So they're probably the hardest enemies you're going to meet in the first hour and a half of the game, if I'm being honest. But again, these battles aren't challenging. They're just a grind. This is the tedious sort of busy work you have to do in a lot of 1990s Japanese RPGs. And again, it's not like you're engaging in fights to learn how to deal with various groups of enemies. You're getting into fights because you need to do these chores, if you will, in order to make your numbers go up so that you can survive stronger enemies. And the stronger enemies aren't harder because they require you to change your tactics. They're harder because they do so much damage to you that at some point you have to eat a consumable. You have to take a consumable to undo the damage they do to you. Day-night cycle in this game. I don't think it really matters. I think certain enemies only appear at night. I don't know. But there is a day-night cycle in this game that was not in that wasn't in Final Fantasy 1 or 4. And I'm not sure Dragon Quest 2 or 3 had it. I can confirm that Dragon Quest 1 did not have a day-night cycle. Let me rephrase that. I don't remember Dragon Warrior having a day-night cycle. But yeah, the Final Fantasy games never had a day-night cycle. And I'm not sure why it matters here. And obviously, you see in games like a Xenoblade Chronicles, they'll have a day-night cycle because certain enemies only appear at night. I don't think. Yeah, that's right. They won't let me go in here. Yeah, I want to say I'm not allowed in here. So I'm just doing the auto battling. So thankfully, the auto battle isn't targeting the wrong enemy, so that's good. But the enemies are so weak at this point. Like I'm so overpowered over most slimes, I can just one-shot them. So that's an example when you would want auto battling. Again, I don't remember if Final Fantasy IV had auto battling, and it's also not included on the SNES Mini, so I can't find out. They won't let me in, so I gotta bounce. And there's no other place I can go to here. Still haven't leveled up yet. Of course, these slimes aren't going to give me much of anything. They're just kind of in the way. Trash enemies. What was that game the PlayStation 4 game? Battle Chasers, I think it was called. See, this deer will get stuck. The problem is that you can't interact with it, see? I can't do anything with it. I don't have my dragon form yet, so I can't do anything there. So again, this might be the hardest mob other than the bullies that we fight early in the game. But now I can one-shot these enemies because before it took two turns to kill a single enemy, which meant they were going to be able to do 12 pips of damage to me guaranteed in that fight, unless I dice rolled a counterattack, which you probably saw me do there. Like an enemy attacks me, I counterattack. That's a pretty strong counterattack. But if the counterattack never occurs, then I'm going to eat 12 pips of damage in that fight, guaranteed, and there's no getting around it. Sometimes, if there's a 50-50 chance they'll strike first, maybe a 75% chance they'll strike first, which means you can't run until they whittle down 6 pips of life. So those are the kinds of situations that force you to have cure potions in your possession. Thankfully, the game gives you a decent amount of cash early on, so you don't have to waste that cash on weapon or armor upgrades. You can just spend that money on cure potions that will keep you alive long enough for you to grind up. You can always save your game, but this might be the first RPG I've played where, yeah, you have to buy cure potions. Because you can't leave the first town until you get some cure potions. And they're cheap. So you're making enough. You get into 2 fights. You earn enough money to buy a second cure potion if you need it. But you start the game with enough money that you don't have to worry about that. Can I one-shot these guys? Yep. So that makes this battle a lot easier. Again, no real strategy. Just recognizing that the enemy in front of you can be killed in a single turn. You aren't going to have to eat. You aren't going to have to waste a turn healing yourself. An interesting wrinkle. So I need to go in here and heal, and I can save my game, I guess. No, I'm fine. He said portentously. Because I remember I have my marble, so I can just go back to town if I need to. But remember, I can't buy any cure potions here. I have to go inside the dungeon to get to the pool to heal myself, so be careful. So again, imagine me doing this for 90 minutes. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go in here. We're going to hang around the pools. We're going to see where all the pools are. We're going to open these treasure chests. We're going to save our game after you open the treasure chest. And then we'll set up the next video where I try to make some actual progress. But I did want you to see all the enemies that are available in the overworld and where you can go early on in the game. And now the game is funneling me back here. So all you teenage RPG makers who are using RPG Maker to make your next video game, if you're going to make a game like this, you can make a very simplistic turn-based combat system. You'll be fine. The AI doesn't have to be sophisticated. You can make a game like this pretty easy with RPG Maker if you just commit to the time required. Personally, I would recommend making combat less, limiting combat to specific areas, making the enemies visible in the overworld, please. Like have little like areas you can say where you can like activate an enemy encounter by stepping on this tile, or go to this go to this room to activate an encounter, and then ask people, do you want to keep going, or do you want to heal before your next encounter? Like, streamline all this nonsense. Because look, I grew up in the struggle. Okay, I'm like Bane. This is the struggle we had to live with back in the 90s. Okay, every RPG was doing this. He left an antidote. That's good. That would be useful here. Got another healing pool right here. To be honest, I kind of want to finish doing this dungeon. I don't want to get lost. I don't want to get lost in here. I hate walking away from a video game and having to do a dungeon because I can never remember where anything is. You never want to save your game inside of a dungeon. It's the worst. Now, thankfully, you can save your game here and then make a copy of it, like a breadcrumb save. So you don't have to. I have to go back now. I can go back to the pool. So here's the pool. So remember, you lose health HP with every step until you reach 1 hit point when you're poisoned. So you don't die, but you're gonna eventually, every step you take causes you to lose health until you have 1 pip of life left, just like in Final Fantasy 1, I believe. But since we have these pools, we get healed. We don't have to worry about any of that. So that's a nice level. That's a nice bit of level design that, again, some of you younger developers could probably practice. Because remember, modern video games, if you want to make your games hard, don't make them hard because they're tedious. Make them hard because you actually have to make tactical decisions. And by tactical, I don't mean like keep doing the tedious stuff until the game becomes easy. I mean as in designing your game so that you have to make meaningful choices. And in this case, don't make people. In other words, you can have blind random encounters if you limit them to specific areas. Like, say, at night, you're more likely to face blind random encounters if your game has a day-night system. If you're in foliage, like the grass in Pokemon. If you're in a forest or a jungle, or you're in a specific area where you're just more likely to get jumped, yeah, okay, fine. You can have some blind random encounters in designated areas. But don't do it like this, where basically every time you're trying to just walk down the street, you're constantly getting jumped by trash mobs who can barely do any damage to you. It's like getting bitten by mosquitoes when you're walking to the store. It's stupid. Don't make people sit through that crap. So we got a couple more treasure chests I need to open. So I guess we'll do our next video by actually exploring this dungeon and not worrying about the treasure chest at all. But I can't get through these rocks though. How do I get past these rocks? Because I don't see any stairs around here. So if I'm gonna be lost, I might as well do it as filler content for this video. Can't break the wall. So I need something to break that wall. Actually, how's my healing? Let me save my game, then I'll go back and heal myself. We should be fine. Again, I brought back just enough potions so they don't have to deal with enemies. In fact, where's it listed here? This music isn't amazing, but it's like whatever. I might splice some in later. I should probably just splice in the Breath of Fire 2 soundtrack instead. I remember liking some of the music in Breath of Fire 2. Like, some of it was actually not bad. It wasn't. Again, it's not a barn burner like Final Fantasy 4, where they like, oh yeah, here's this fantastic soundtrack. Like, Final Fantasy 4 set the template, I think, for how should Super Famicom, Super NES music sound. ActRaiser was a decent demo, I think. I personally think the soundtrack's overrated. Like, ActRaiser has maybe three, that's like four good songs in it, and the rest of them are kind of meh. They're okay, I guess. And like a lot of Super NES games, a lot of Super NES soundtracks kind of lean too heavy into those generic symphonic sound fonts. And in a game like Zelda, Link to the Past, or like ActRaiser 1, it's really basic. It's really disappointing. These guys poison you, so be careful. Called it. Well, thankfully I can heal myself, so I don't have to worry about that. But I would say Final Fantasy IV. That's like a top three soundtrack to me. It's probably a top five soundtrack on the console. I think it's better than Final Fantasy VI. Mainly because Final Fantasy VI has a lot there's a lot of weird instrumentation going on. Good thing I already saved my game. They poisoned me too far away from the pool, unfortunately. There we go. We're good. Final Fantasy VI is a weird situation where the music, there's a lot of really weird instrumentation in certain parts that makes it sound overly synthetic, and I never really liked it. And it's really and again, I'm that guy. The opera is almost unlistenable. The attempts to do the human voice using those really weird sound fonts does not work at all. It's a terrible. The opera has terrible music. Now the rest of the game, very good. It's a top 10 soundtrack on the console. Absolutely. But yeah, the opera is terrible and similar music in the game that does the overly synthesized crap does not work. In fact, the songs that don't work in Final Fantasy VI are similar to most of the music in Final Fantasy VII, which I think is a massive disappointment because it's almost like, okay, it sounds like you're trying to make a really good Super NES soundtrack, but it doesn't sound like you're leaning at all into the abilities of the PlayStation. It didn't have to be, Red Book. But listen to Star Ocean 2, compare that to Final Fantasy 7, listen to the instrumentation in Final Fantasy 7, and tell me that's a better soundtrack than Star Ocean 2. Now, Star Ocean 2 leans into a lot of the synthesized stuff too, but the choices of the instruments is way better. Like, it's not as good as, say, like a Final Fantasy Tactics. Sure, I acknowledge that. Xenogears is arguably better than Star Ocean 2 as well. But Star Ocean 2 was, pan flute Sakuraba bias with some fat freaking bass and some really exciting up-tempo music. And again, it's some of the most gobsmackingly gorgeous, new age progressive music you'll hear on the console, combined with some really rousing up-tempo synth synth rock. Well, not rock really, but like really fat bass on those boss themes and those battle themes. Like some of the instrumentation is kind of weird because it's really abrasive. But Star Ocean 2 is still one of the greatest soundtracks of all time. And the only reason why Final Fantasy Tactics is a tier lower than that is because there's more filler music on that soundtrack, I would argue. It's very narratively I'll admit that. Final Fantasy Tactics, I think, leans more into the narrative songs. But I think that Star Ocean 2 does a much better job of doing I think Star Ocean 2 is almost a no skip soundtrack. There might be like 4 songs on that soundtrack that are like either bad or just kind of like really repetitive. And that's like 4 songs in a soundtrack that has maybe like 50 bangers. Like the Star Ocean soundtrack with no repeats is like 90 minutes long, I think. And there might be like 2.5 minutes of music on that soundtrack that's skippable, which is astonishing for a soundtrack that's more than 2 hours long. I would argue Final Fantasy Tactics is about as long, but half of the songs are kind of okay. Like they're okay, or they're narrative, so they're like mood setting, but they aren't really evocative or compelling. They're just kind of like a bed for like the onerous events that usually take place. But yeah, but the best music in Final Fantasy Tactics is some of the best music ever composed for a video game. So there's always going to be just that qualification I put on it. Still one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. But there's a lot more filler in Final Fantasy Tactics than there is in Star Ocean 2. I will make that concession. And strangely enough, Sakuraba's been making music since at least the Mega Drive era, like in the late 1980s. I didn't hear a single song he composed until I played Star Ocean 2. I obviously the original Star Ocean game came out in Japan only on the Super Famicom. We never got a chance to hear it. It's apparently not great. Like I've heard bits and pieces of it. It's not great. It's how do I describe it? I can't really describe it really. It sounds like he's trying to eventually get to a Star Ocean sounding game, but this sounds like a first draft of the kind of music he would eventually wind up making in the Star Ocean sequels. But Star Ocean 2 is leaps and bounds beyond anything Sakuraba had done, any soundtrack for any cartridge prior to that I've heard. I mean, I've heard some of it. Like Ernest Evans is okay. Some of the songs in the Genesis are good. He did Soul Deist, which is pretty good. Some of the Soul Deist music, when you listen to I think they have like a Roland sound card on one of those computers. I think they have like an X68000, like a Sharp X68000 console, and it has some kind of funky sound card in it. That has some really good music in it, but obviously most people are familiar with his Sega CD games. Was it Soul Feast? I have the Red Book soundtrack for that. Again, it's what you would expect from Sakuraba from that era. Again, back in those days, Sakuraba was doing mainly lots of progressive synth rock, and or progressive jazz fusion, I guess you could say. Progressive synth jazz fusion. If you've heard his music in Mario Tennis or Mario Golf, you kind of know what to expect. Most people probably know him from Mario Tennis, actually. I mean, okay, I'm not gonna. I'll talk about Dark Souls another time. I have never heard a song in a Dark Souls game that I've wanted to hear twice. I don't get it. Haven't paid much attention to Dark Souls music, even though Sakuraba composed it. I bought one of the Dark Souls games that included a sampler of his music. Could not tell you a single song that was in it. In one ear, out the other. No interest whatsoever in the soundtrack, which is saying a lot because Sakuraba has made some of the greatest, progressive, new age music I've ever heard. So when you told me, Sakuraba is going to do a symphonic soundtrack, well, he did Shining Force 3, he did Shining in the Darkness. They were kind of unremarkable, frankly. But you can hear some of that Sakuraba funk in there, which is pretty good. I don't think he did any of the Tales games because he used to work with Wolf Team back in the Genesis Mega Drive era, working on, the Ernest Evans games. He did El Viento. Again, fat, funky bass, but he was doing up-tempo music back then. Up-tempo synth music. But when you listen to his more somber tunes, like in a Bait and Kaitos, which I believe is getting remade in 2025, Bait and Kaitos, Star Ocean 2, Valkyrie Profile, especially by the time Somaria came out, like he leaned completely into that. Yeah, we're gonna be super chill, super somber, lots of violins, lots of organ, super symphonic. But it was really good. I haven't heard much of the. What's weird, I recorded some of the Somaria soundtrack, but I haven't really sat down and listened to it. I need to. That's the kind of thing I would do right now. I would listen to that soundtrack while I'm playing this game, which I need to do. I need to listen to more Super Famicom music while I'm playing these games. I should have been doing it when I was playing No Man's Sky, but I'm in the podcast era now, so I'm listening to a lot of podcasts, trying to follow the news, trying to learn some stuff. But yeah, but when I'm not, but when I just want to like chill and not do a podcast, then yeah, I'll listen to video game music as like a sort of as a chill way to absorb all this content. Why can't I break these rocks? I'm going in circles. I can't interact with those things up there. Am I missing something obvious? You don't have to worry about that. Yeah, I can't interact with anything. Like, I can't interact with those rocks up there. I saw that tablet, but I can't interact with it. Bizarre. Yeah, this game isn't gonna hold up. I mean, eventually, once I get a party, it might be interesting, but I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. I can't break any of those rocks. Am I supposed to talk to someone outside so I can break those rocks? Because what's the point of killing the enemies if I can't make any progress? So I can't interact with this. I can't push it. Oh, there's stairs. Sorry, I'm an idiot. So we're gonna go back upstairs and end the video. I press the button. I take herb. Ooh, a bronze shield. There's an equip button here. There we go. Oh, wait. Am I attacked? Wait. What? Is that a bronze shield? What? Wait, what? Well, it's stronger. Am I attacking with a shield? Not that I'm complaining. I'm just think it's weird. Huh. I didn't know that was a thing. I guess I'm holding it in my hand, so I guess that makes sense. So I can't do sword and shield? Well, I was carrying a dagger. I don't know what anyone was expecting here. So we get one more treasure chest and back out. Okay, I feel like an idiot because I thought I was supposed to touch. I thought that was a rock I was supposed to touch. But no, it's actually stairs going down. So what's up there on the left? More stairs going up. Got a gauntlet. Like the old arcade game that did I play? I did play Gauntlet earlier. I haven't put the video up, but I played it on the PlayStation 2. It was part of the Midway Arcade Classics. It's a terrible game. But you know what? If you're playing with 4 friends and you're drunk, you don't mind free playing the game without pumping quarters into it because, you're paying for time because eventually you run out of health because every quarter means you're paying for a certain amount of hit points, which drains slowly over time. Don't get me started. I was supposed to equip something. Give me a second. This is a linear upgrade. So I guess I can sell that wood shield. Well, when I get my second party member, I'll see if they're even allowed to equip this. I make no promises. Nothing in here whatsoever. Probably should mention this because I said I was playing this on a CRT. I am noticing the curvature of the screen as it scrolls, which I think is kind of hilarious. But again, because I've played the Sega Genesis Classics disc on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and there's actually there's a CRT filter that warps the screen so that it's supposed to simulate. It's garbage. I really wish video games wouldn't do that crap, but people like that. Wasn't this one of those super flat TVs? I think. Yeah, was this technically a super flat TV? So what we'll do is we'll heal ourselves, save the game, then hop back in here. Hopefully I won't have to waste any potions. I didn't want to waste any antidotes. But yeah, I would call this a pacing problem. This is not a feature. Our game design principles hadn't quite gotten to the point where we can say, oh yeah, we can make a game harder by making the combat more sophisticated, like a Persona Revelations. Like that I remember that game was like, yeah, there's some enemies where it's more effective to talk to them. Yeah, it's more effective to talk to them than to try and pick a fight with them. Stuff like that. You can recruit them if you knew what you were doing. So the game was it was a turn-based strategy. It was a turn-based game, which I played on this channel using the PlayStation Classic. But it was also a game where you didn't just have to fight enemies in these kind of. In fact, there wasn't much fighting in the first couple of hours of Persona Revelations, but there's a long one. There's like an unskippable 45-minute opening to that game. Now, some of you Persona fans who've played Persona 5 will say, "Ha ha, only a 45-minute prologue, noob." But yeah, the Persona Revelations on the PlayStation 4 and the PSP. PlayStation 3, I believe, had the same issue. I think Persona 4 had the same problem. Persona 5 is notorious for having a 5-hour prologue where there's basically no combat. And I played 3 hours of that on this channel, actually. So you get to see how bad the pacing is. I do own the PlayStation 4 version of that game. I want to say it was on sale for like $10 back in the day. The PlayStation 3 version of the game is basically the same. As far as like visuals go, it's basically the same, but it's way more expensive. I want to say it's like $40 or $50 compared to the PlayStation 4 version. But if you're one of those poor suckers who still has a PlayStation 3, you could play a more expensive version of the game if you want. By the way, I might have to bury this PlayStation 3. I used it to play some Blu-rays last year, but I never used it since then. And then I think it died on me. I think I think the fan's going out or the power supply has gone out. I don't know, but it's bad. I was afraid that would happen. I mean, I didn't play it that much, honestly. My PlayStation 2 still works, so I can still play my PlayStation 1 games, but I'm going to have to spend another $100 to replace it. Which means a lot of these games, I'm going to end up selling games like this and using the money to buy a PlayStation 3. No getting around it. But I tell people, like again, don't hold on to games like this if you don't like them. Like, yeah, the price is going up. This is a game that costs like $20 loose. Unless you buy it from GameStop, at which point it probably costs like, I bought it from GameStop for $20 as part of a bundle. Was it worth it? No. This is very much this is very much an emulator friendly special. Games like this, Chrono Trigger, arguably Final Fantasy sequels. Same problem. They're based on a grind and they're not very well paced. So if you can do, save states, if you can do save states, if you can do frame skips to speed up the combat. The Sega Genesis collection lets you speed up games to make the combat more tolerable. Again, being able to rewind to avoid certain confrontations, because there are a lot of confrontations in Fantasy Star 2. I tried playing the game, it was really bad. Trying to deal with all those constant interruptions when you were exploring a dungeon, you would constantly get interrupted by fights. And what's worse is that game had that really annoying system where because you couldn't target an individual enemy, you could only target a type of enemy. Like if you're attacked by dogs and cats, let's say you're attacked by 2 dogs and 2 cats. Sorry, I hit the microphone there. You can't attack the dog on the left or the dog on the right. You can't attack the dog on the left or the cat on the right. You have to say target dog, and the game picks automatically one of the 2 dogs to attack. And that means there's a chance it may choose the wrong dog. So instead of attacking the weakest dog, it attacks the other dog that's unharmed. When it should, so instead of finishing off an enemy, it instead does more damage to a random enemy in that group of enemies. That's the problem. There's no individual target selection in that game. So it makes some fights complete freaking gambles. And I called it a game breaker because it means given the amount of combat that happens in that game and the fact that you have to grind so much to earn the money you need to buy the potions and the antidotes and the remedies and to heal your magic and to teleport with the monomates back so you can teleport back to town when you've made it to, because the dungeons in Phantasy Star 2 are like these. They're like Fibonacci spirals. They're mazes. They're combination mazes and Fibonacci spirals where you're constantly going in these extended circular patterns to get to where you need to go. And if you take a wrong, there are dead ends, and that's not cool. There's no way for me to avoid poison, is there? So I have to bring like a whole stack of I have to bring a whole stack of antidotes just to make progress. So we're gonna end the video pretty soon. So you're starting to see the pacing of all this, right? So I need to come in here with another another 9 potions. This is. I guess I could run away, so I don't have to deal with this. But I'm glad the game gave me that grinding area. That's good to know. Well, another area I can explore. More loot. Suede. I don't have to buy that. Suede CP. Suede CP or you're with me. We got the suede. We ain't going nowhere. Better. You move more. I guess ACT means how quickly you act, which means you're more likely to be interrupted. I guess I don't know what that means. This game didn't come with a manual. Now I could go on archive.org, I think, and download the scans of the manuals. I think that made NPR did an interview with the guys who were in charge of the project because I think their job was to scan every manual for an NES game. And some of those games needed them, like maybe Top Gun needed them. But I want to say there were some RPGs and some of these adventure games, like your Shadowgate. I would play a Shadowfax video game, a Shadowgate, and there was one other game I'm forgetting. There are a lot of games. Oh god, the Koei simulations, like PTO, Napoleon, Nobunaga's Ambition, Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Impossible to play unless you dig out one of those manuals. 80, 90, 100 page long manuals. Like books. Like not strategy guys, books that tell you basically everything most of the things you need to know to play the game. Apparently those are spreadsheet games, by the way. Am I poisoned? I'm not poisoned, am I? I'm not poisoned. Okay, we're good. I had to eat an antidote though, so I have to go back to town and buy some more antidotes, which I was afraid of. But again, like emulators. I can't recommend that you download ROMs. Uh-oh. Wait, what just happened? The trap triggered a something. I don't know what happened. Yeah, use the gauntlet. Why did I take that off? First of all, I'm not attacking with a bronze shield. I'm clearly attacking with a sword. I'm attacking with a dirk. Let's be brutally honest here. Can I run? Nope, can't run. So I'm already poisoned anyway, so I gotta eat it. So I guess the strategy is to run and then eat and then kill these guys. I don't think I lose any health during the fight, but I lose health after the fight. So I'm gonna have to run back. I have to run all the way back to town and get a potion. Lame. I have plenty of gold here, so I can afford to use that potion that allows me to avoid combat. The Marble 3. Left an herb. That's awfully nice of them. It'd be nice if these enemies dropped antidotes more often, but anyway. They won't do much damage, but they will poison you, and that's the problem. Dark Mist. I have no AP. Did I automatically take that antidote? Did I automatically take that antidote? So I guess I shouldn't have opened that treasure chest. Oh. Uh-oh. Slimeless humans? Okay, so I guess I get to beat this boss in the first place. Okay, fine. So we'll auto battle. Because again, what are my strategies here? I have no maybe I'll need a potion eventually? Ow. So it might take 6 more turns for me to beat this guy. Counter. A counter's always good. It's a free hit. But again, there's no strategy to that, is there? Right? Ow, that hurt. I might need a cure potion at some point. So we'll press the B button to cancel out of it. Yeah, we'll cancel out of it. Okay. Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine. I don't need it. Yeah, so we're gonna turn off the auto battle. Okay, I'll heal myself. I'll heal myself. Should you risk it? Nah. Wait, I have 20 hit points? That seems fine. I can eat 6 more bits of damage. Ugh. Now I'm gonna need that potion. I win! Ha! Wait, what? Wait, what? What do you mean frog seems alright? I thought I killed him. Okay, that sucked. Okay, fine. We're gonna have to eat a potion now. Give me the loot. I have too many herbs, believe it or not. Should have taken it earlier. Okay, I'm good. Let's go. Holla at your boy. We're gonna auto battle here on out. You said he seems alright. That seemed. Oh, he wasn't dead yet. There's your problem. You underestimated my fatness. Wakanda forever. T'Challa Bogard wins the fight. Wins the fight. When the foul air is gone, so I guess I didn't need to run back and get an antidote. I feel better about that, I guess. Get at me, dog. Take herb and the 150 GP. Is there backtracking? Can I break the wall? Nope. So we're going all the way back. Fairy Tale Adventure on the Genesis. And I believe on PC had the same problem. Like, I think multiple reviewers said, why do you have to backtrack all the way to the dungeon? Oh my god. So, of course, by the time Skyrim comes out, you design the levels so that when you beat the boss, there's a door that takes you right to the entrance, which is amazing. Every video game should do that. In fact, every time I make a dungeon in an RPG, I'm doing that. But yeah, there should definitely be a shortcut. Like, a door, like a trap door that sends you to, like a teleporter or a trap door that sends you to the beginning. Like basic human, basic human interactivity stuff. Did the random encounters get turned off? I'm not complaining, but did they get turned off? Have I beaten the boss? Yeah, I think they got turned off, so I feel better about that. Okay, so I get to make progress. Yay! I get to save my game, hopefully. So I think I mentioned this in the past. This is supposed to be a game where you might spend you come home from work, you spend 20 minutes grinding, then you might spend 30 minutes doing a dungeon run. Or maybe you might spend a couple of days just grinding in 30-minute gaming sessions after work, then you go to bed. Because you brain off abnegation, you don't have time to do anything serious. You just want to kind of grind to the next point of progression, because you're over the course of say a few days, you would have put in 30 minutes to 40 minutes grinding so that you're eventually going to be strong enough to do a Friday night or a Saturday night or a Sunday night run through a dungeon, which might take an hour or so. Okay, so let's save our game here, and we'll tease the next video. Again, I played this game for 3 hours before starting this video, so don't think this is not a fair representation of the game's progression. I tried to kind of chop out some of the filler by skipping around, showing you the unskippable prologue, showing you the enemies you're fighting just outside the dungeon. You get to see how much experience you earn right away, how much money healing costs, how quickly you level up. But, again, the game doesn't tell you how many experience points you need to level up. So I don't know what's going on there. Now, I can't buy anything here, so we'll end the video pretty soon. Find the Quake control. Put it into Quake 64, what? So there's an earthquake. So is he like Lex Luthor? He's got an earthquake machine? What? So it's not just enough that we have dragons; we have to deal with earthquakes now. Because screen shaking is the kind of spectacle that was actually more common in the early '90s, I would say. Like the ability, like it's sort of an immersive effect. The idea that you can just kind of shake the screen. Again, that was spectacle in a lot of these 2D pixel art games. So I saved my game. I might need some more antidotes. I don't know. So we'll tease the next video by going to the next town. Hopefully there's a shop there where I can buy some antidotes. Because I don't want to have to go all the way back to level 1. I don't want to have to go all the way back to the first town to do that. I can one-shot this guy. Again, I'm technically supposed to be equipped with a bronze shield. But the animation never changes. Because again, remember, it's a cartridge. Yet space. You don't waste space on variety in sprite design. You don't have like in what was it in Final Fight? Yeah, in Final Fight, if you weren't carrying a weapon, you just the character's attack animation didn't change, just that there was no weapon attached to their hands. So it's like attack animation with no weapon sprite in front of it. It's kind of like the Ninja Turtles NES game. You would always swing every turtle would have the same attack animation, but there was a sprite around their hand that determined the path or the behavior of the weapon they were swinging. Final Fantasy did that. Of course, there would be like a magic spell you could do. So there was a slightly different animation there. But again, like not terribly, like 2 or 3 frames of animation, like in this game, 2 or 3 frames of animation, like because that's how it's a B tier turn-based RPG from 1993. It's about what you would expect. Like if you told me like I want to remake Grandia for the Super Famicom, it might look like this. But again, like remember, you're developing these games. We're using C programming. We're using assembly language. Because I know on the NES they were using assembly language, but I want to say by this point developers were able to use C programming language instead. But again, imagine making a game like this with RPG Maker. You can, but what I would do is I would get rid of the blind random encounters. Again, it's a very antiquated way of doing this kind of exploration. Again, I would limit the blind random encounters to certain areas of the game. I would limit it to, again, certain times of day. Environmental conditions, like if there's fog or rain or, like I said, like smoke. So if it were obviously a situation where an enemy could get the jump on you, I would definitely do that. Otherwise, I would prefer that there's a lot of encounters going on here. Otherwise, I would prefer if the video game instead did something like I said, designated areas. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest did this. The enemies would be NPCs who either wandered the overworld or kind of they were like keys. They were stationed in a hallway. They were stationed in a corridor. They were in front of a door. They were in front of a gate. So in order to make progress, you had to talk to the NPC, which initiated a fight. That's a lot more common these days. I'm glad of that. Thank you. But yeah, so again, if I were making a game like this, it would definitely have like designated areas, like training areas for mobs. So like here's an arena where you can get into fights with enemies, one after the other. You can cancel the fight at any time by running away, or in between fights you can choose. Do you want to stop training now and heal yourself, or do you just want to go on to the next fight? So no walking back and forth waiting for a blind random encounter like this game. Or even like Zelda 2, where you have enemies appear on the overworld map, but there's a lot of random number generation that determines what enemies you fight, the path, the behavior, like when they shuck and jive and duck and dodge, and they like as the enemies like move erratically on the overworld. They spawn randomly around your character, but they move erratically, so you can kind of avoid them. And Zelda 2 also had that trick that most people know, where if you stick to the path, they don't spawn. Or if you touch an enemy while you're on the path, then the no enemy appears. But as soon as you stray from the path, then yeah, the enemies will interrupt you. Okay, so I came all the way out here for nothing. I got experience. That's what matters. So we'll end the video with some more vamping, and we'll go to the first level. We'll go to the first stage, save our game, get our cure potions, and then we can bail. But yeah, again, I don't like this grind. It got more tolerable. Again, this is where the game tricks you a little bit. The game gets you into these very simplistic turn-based battles, kind of like the Pokemon battles. You know, you have one skill at first, then eventually you learn multiple skills. Eventually, you can switch out Pokemon, but there's not a lot of strategy. The strategy is, in this game, just attack. In this case, I'm just auto battling, and if I take too much damage, pull out one of your healing items and heal yourself either outside of the fight or during the fight if you're willing to eat a turn. But the grind is still kind of bad. So I was afraid of that. So this 90-minute video is going to represent 90 minutes of the first 4 hours of this game. Now, it's still better paced than Skyward Sword, haha, fight me. Because remember, the first hour of Link to the Past, you grab a sword, storm into the rain, into a driving rainstorm, kill a dozen dudes, rescue Princess Zelda, and take her home. In the first hour of the game, you've basically done the entire the entire Legend of Zelda thing. They've condensed they condensed the essence of the Legend of Zelda experience to a 1 hour wind up to the game. I would argue that's good pacing. It's a good tutorial because it basically gives you everything you need to know to start playing the game. It doesn't let you explore really. That's the one problem I have with the opening, The Legend of to Link to the Past. But everything about the presentation, about the music, about how it explains the basics of combat, some of the light puzzles they have you do, the light exploration they have you do, like everything about that first hour of Link to the Past is a great introduction to the Zelda experience. I would not tell a noob to go play The Legend of Zelda 1 on the NES Classic. It's impossible to make sense of, especially if you don't have a map, because that game came with a map. And even then, the game doesn't tell you where anything is. So you would need Nintendo power, and a walkthrough, and a map. But that's what I'm getting at, essentially, is that there are games like this which are very easy to kind of get it, which are very easy to kind of like grasp, but there's not much to them, honestly. I said I was going to go back to the first town so I can buy some more goodies. First of all, where's the 9 dungeon? Like, again, I don't have a map or a manual with this game. So if I go to the next town at night, can I sneak in? I don't know. I could go inside the dungeon and heal myself. So yeah, this is the Breath of Fire experience. This is the first. This right here that we've done is a condensed version of the first 3 hours of Breath of Fire. What I'll do is for funsies, I'll open up a what do you call it? I'll open up a speed run. I'm curious because I think there are parts of the game you could speed run. Like if you buy some potions right away, you can kind of speed run your way. You can use the potions to speed your way into this dungeon, and then fight some enemies. Heal yourself because you saw me go up 4 experience levels in less than 10 minutes. So that helps. If you can get here at level 2, then you can like go up a couple of levels pretty quickly, fighting the enemies in here. So that would work. So again, I recorded this on original hardware using a cartridge and my original 1993 Super NES console with it's all yellow and chipped. Component yellow or composite yellow video output into my Magnavox VHS DVD recorder combo unit with composite composite yellow video cable, noisy unfortunately, out to my CRT, which is how I'm playing this. The DVD recorder also has a HDMI output at 1080p. Let me at least show you that. So 1080p RGB output to this laptop using a Vivitar USB dongle. I got it from Walmart. Input latency isn't bad. I've been playing shooters with it. But obviously the input latency is lower on a TV. But playing, if I were to capture this on my laptop, it'd be fine. It's a turn-based RPG. And it's being captured at a 4:3 resolution, 1024 by 768. So that's Super VGA, right? I think it might be. Yeah, I think it's EVGA possibly. 60 frames a second, which you don't really need, but unfortunately, some of the interlacing effects they have going on, like with that dragon god who saved my progress. That dragon has a flickering effect that probably won't show up on YouTube if you're watching it at 30 frames a second. So I'm capturing it at 60. I will play a little. I'll probably play another hour or so of this game. I hope I can get a party of two at some point. But this game was not terribly well received when it came out. It got a lot of B minus, C plus reviews. Like lots of people were saying, like, yeah, it's fine, I guess. It was a $60 game, I think, when it launched. People were like, it's fine. Reviewers were saying, yeah, it's fine. It's no Final Fantasy 2. It's no Phantasy Star 2. It's just fine. And I tend to believe that's what we have here. Now, its sequel was very well regarded, as I recall, more in the B plus range, the B plus range of our turn-based RPGs. I think that one was actually localized by Capcom. People were more receptive to RPGs back then, so I think people were down with what Breath of Fire 2 was trying to do. I liked Breath of Fire 2 quite a bit when it came out. I don't remember it being great, but I remember really liking it when it came out. Like I remember that, Chrono Trigger, and Final Fantasy 3. I liked a lot. I think I liked Breath of Fire 2 more than Secret of Mana actually, and I really liked Secret of Mana. I have a journal where I wrote down my letter grades. I gave it my capsule review. I gave it an A minus when I was a kid. It's not now in retrospect. Secret of Mana is not good at all. It's really janky and kind of poorly designed. But this game, I would have given this game like a B when I was a kid. But now, in the light of day, I'd probably give it a C minus. It's a C at best. It probably gets better later. A lot of RPGs get better later, but there's a long wind up to get to this point. So again, this is an emulator special. This is probably a game that would be better off if I had played it with an emulator, with the ability to speed things up, slow things down with a frame rate. It would be really awesome. I know they're never going to do this. Did they ever make a Breath of Fire anthology for the Switch? Because the PlayStation 3 game has a lot of load times. No, it was PlayStation 3. Yeah, there's a remake on the PlayStation Portable. So if they remade that with some, like, apparently the trick for the PlayStation Portable version of Breath of Fire 3 is to not play the game on the disc, but to, like, how do I describe this? To emulate the disc on a PlayStation Portable so that you can get past the long load times. That constantly interrupted the game's flow. There's an argument to be made for backing up your discs on a PlayStation Portable so that they run better. But that's another argument. That's an argument I'm not going to spend much time on this channel. What was I thinking of? So yeah, Breath of Fire 4 I barely played when it was on the PlayStation 1. I do own Dragon Quarter on the PlayStation 2. I guarantee I'm going to play that game in the next few months. Probably on Halloween. It might be a Halloween game. I don't know. But Dragon Quarter is probably the most divisive turn-based RPG I've ever heard people talk about. Like, how do I describe this? It was a game that was made in an era when RPGs were slightly more experimental, but a lot of people wanted these games to be to have more conventional progression. That game was, I'm gonna have to talk more about it later, but it's like apparently they weren't doing a Dark Souls thing really. They were like saying it's a game where you're supposed to, it's a time, yeah, like Outer Worlds. No, Outer Wilds, Majora's Mask, a couple of other games I'm thinking of, games like that. These games that are about putting you on the clock as soon as the game starts. And you're supposed to die, you're supposed to start over from the beginning, you're supposed to speed run through subsequent playing sessions, learning what you know about the progress of the game. Like imagine, again, I can't talk about this too much. But the idea is you start the game at level 1, but at some point your character dies. So you have to start over from the beginning of the game, but knowing what you know now, leading up to your death, you then speed run that earlier part of the game, past all the enemies that were giving you trouble earlier, just avoiding them entirely, and then advancing to a point where you can, I guess, comfortably make progress further. So the game, I think Hero Must Die Again is another one of those games which I played on the Nintendo Switch. These games that force you to restart from the beginning, but give you lots of different ways to progress through the game, so that you can speed run previous areas that you've done in the past, or you can go someplace completely new and try a different path through the game to see if that's any better. I want to play more games like that to kind of get a feel for how I feel about them. But Dragon Quest was a game that I've always wanted to get into. I played it for a couple of hours, but never really sunk my teeth into it. I'm going to finally settle down and play it, and I'm going to listen to that fantastic Sakuraba soundtrack. Excuse me, the Sakamoto Hitoshi soundtrack. You could argue he peaked in the PS2 era. But we'll talk more. We'll break out some of that Sakamoto bias a bit later. For now, meh to this game. We'll play more of it and we'll probably never touch it again. In fact, I'm probably going to sell it so I can buy my PlayStation 3 all over again. We'll see how it goes. Breath of Fire on Super Nintendo on original hardware. Video number 1.